When Beauty broke the curse herself, she inherited the monster's hunger. They say love can break any curse. But what if the price of saving the one you love is far darker than the curse itself? Beauty was never meant to be the hero of this tale. She was meant to wait, to love, to believe. But when she saw the beast dying before her eyes, his breath slowing as the last petals of the enchanted rose began to fall, she made a choice. She would not wait for fate. She would seize it. That choice changed everything. What Beauty never understood was that the curse was not a prison for the beast alone. It was a prison for the hunger inside him. And when she broke it by force, she did not free him. She freed the darkness. And it needed someone new to cling to. Before we uncover what became of her, make sure you subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Every week, we bring you the dark truths hidden inside the stories you thought you knew. Because tonight, Beauty will discover that some curses are not broken. They are passed on. The castle stood silent beneath an endless shroud of snow, its towers like broken teeth piercing the gray sky. Inside, shadows stretched long across empty corridors where laughter had not echoed for decades. Beauty walked those halls with cautious steps, her heart pounding each time she passed the cursed rose, its petals wilting one by one inside the glass dome. The beast lingered close by, his once mighty form now weakened, shoulders hunched, breath heavy as though every second weighed a lifetime. She had grown used to his presence, his quiet sorrow, but the inevitability of his end clawed at her resolve. Time was running out, and with each petal that fell, the walls of the castle seemed to sigh with dread. She told herself she came to love him, but was it enough? Or was she lying to herself, trying to master fear of being left alone in a place where curses ruled every stone? One night, when the wind howled like mourners around the towers, Beauty found herself wandering deeper into the library. The shelves held not only stories of chivalry and hope, but grim tomes no human hand should have touched. Leather-bound volumes whispered spells that bent fate itself, of curses torn apart not by love but by blood and will. Dust coated the bindings, yet some pages looked freshly turned, as if the castle itself wanted her to see them. She lingered on one passage, the ink still sharp, describing a ritual that promised release without waiting for destiny. It spoke of sacrifice, of hunger, of binding darkness. The words unsettled her, but desperation clung to her more tightly than fear. And as she read, she felt a shiver crawl across her spine, as if unseen eyes watched from the corners of the room. Beauty tried to ignore the pull of forbidden words, yet the image of the beast fading before her eyes haunted every waking thought. He sat by the fire, claws trembling as he reached toward the rose, as if memorizing the glow of its last petals. She longed to tell him of what she had discovered, but his voice, cracked with regret, always silenced her. "It is better this way," he would mutter, as though surrendering to death was a mercy. But mercy felt like betrayal. Beauty clenched her fists, torn between honoring the story fate had written and tearing apart the script to create her own ending. In the quiet of her chambers, she traced the words of the spell again and again until they burned into her memory. Could she truly love him enough to let him go? Or did love mean refusing to lose him, no matter the cost? The days bled into each other, and Beauty began to notice the castle changing with her thoughts. Mirrors reflected not only her face, but faint glimpses of a woman with eyes darker, sharper, filled with something she did not yet recognize. The walls whispered in her dreams, promising that power was hers if she reached for it. At meals, the beast barely touched his food, his silence a weight too heavy to bear. "If only there were more time," he whispered once, and the words cut her deeper than any blade. More time. Wasn't that what the ritual promised? Her heart wrestled with dread, but a decision was forming, sharp and unyielding, like frost spreading across glass. Finally, as another petal fell and the echo of its landing filled the chamber like a tolling bell, Beauty knew she could not wait any longer. She stood over the rose, her hand trembling against the glass, her mind echoing with the words she had memorized. Behind her, the beast's voice broke through the silence. "What are you doing?" His eyes, weary and tender, searched hers with confusion. For a moment, she faltered, her breath caught between fear and determination. But as the rose dimmed further, she whispered a promise, not to him, but to herself. She would break the curse, even if it meant shattering the story itself. And in that whisper, something unseen stirred, listening. The ritual began on a night when the storm outside swallowed the sky. Beauty moved through the halls like a shadow, clutching the stolen pages from the forbidden tome. She had gathered what the spell demanded. A silver bowl filled with water from the cursed fountain, a shard of mirror touched by moonlight, and a single petal from a rose. Each object trembled in her hands, as if aware of the defiance they served. She whispered the words with a voice that wasn't entirely her own, syllables rolling like thunder. The chamber darkened, though no candle was extinguished. It was as if the castle itself held its breath, watching her bend fate into something it was never meant to be. The beast stumbled into the room, his massive frame shaking with weakness. "Stop," he rasped, his voice both command and plea. His golden eyes flickered with terror as he saw the ritual unfold. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. But then the rose released another petal, glowing faintly before falling into the bowl. The spell consumed it, releasing a hiss like searing flesh. Beauty's lips trembled, but she continued, her tears mixing with the incantation. The beast clawed at the floor, dragging himself closer, but his strength failed. "You don't understand. It isn't mine to give," he whispered. His words cracked something inside her, yet they only fueled her desperation. The air thickened, pressing against her chest, as if unseen hands tested her resolve. The mirror shard shimmered with images of her future, her face pale and sharp, her eyes shadowed with hunger. For a moment, she recoiled, almost breaking the circle. But then she remembered his frail hands, his fading breath, the silence that would follow if she did nothing. "I would rather damn myself than lose you," she said, though the beast could barely hear her. With that declaration, the final words escaped her lips, and the ground quaked beneath her feet. Darkness poured into the chamber, rushing like a tide released from chains. For one breathless moment, everything stilled. The beast collapsed, gasping, his body shifting as if shedding an invisible weight. His monstrous form twisted, bones reshaping, claws retracting, fur receding. He cried out in pain, but it was the cry of a man reborn. His curse was breaking. Beauty's heart leapt. She had succeeded. But then a searing pain split through her chest, forcing her to the ground. She clawed at her skin as if something beneath tried to tear its way out. Her vision blurred, her mouth filled with the taste of ash, and she realized with horror that the darkness hadn't vanished. It had moved. The beast, now human and trembling, reached for her with shaking hands. "No! No! It wasn't supposed to be you," he whispered, his eyes filled with dread. Beauty's body convulsed, her veins darkening, her pupils dilating until only black remained. She screamed, but the sound was not her own. It echoed with the voices of countless souls bound by the curse before her. In that instant, she understood. The hunger was ancient, endless, and now it lived within her. She had freed him, but shackled herself. And as she rose to her knees, gasping, the storm outside broke into sudden silence, as though the world itself recognized a new monster had been born. Beauty staggered to her feet, her breath ragged, her hands trembling as if charged with something alive. The human beast, once monstrous, now fragile in his true skin, stared at her with horror. "You've taken it," he whispered, his voice trembling. At first, she did not understand. Then the hunger rippled through her veins, a fire that demanded to be fed. Every sound sharpened. Every heartbeat in the room thundered in her ears. The man before her was no longer the beast she feared losing. He was prey. She clutched her chest, forcing herself to look away, terrified by the thought pulsing inside her. She wanted to devour him. The mirrors across the chamber quivered and cracked, showing fragments of her face, shifting with monstrous undertones. Eyes glowing faintly, lips curling with hunger that was not hers, yet entirely a part of her now. She stumbled back, shaking her head, whispering, "This isn't me." The curse laughed within her, voices echoing through the walls, mocking her defiance. The man who had once been the beast reached for her, tears streaking his cheeks. "You should have let me bear it alone. It was always mine." His voice cracked like shattered glass, and the words pierced her deeper than the hunger did. For a moment, she almost believed she could resist. But resistance crumbled when she caught the scent of blood from a shallow cut on his hand. The hunger surged, drowning her thoughts. She lurched forward, her shadow stretching unnaturally across the stone floor, claws she didn't possess yet seeming to scrape at reality. The man recoiled, fear overtaking his sorrow. "Beauty don't." His plea barely anchored her, but it carved a fissure of guilt deep inside her chest. She stopped, trembling, caught between the woman she had been and the monster she was becoming. And in that hesitation, the hunger whispered a promise. It would never leave her. The storm outside erupted again, lightning slashing the sky, thunder shaking the castle to its core. The glass dome shattered, the last petals of the rose scattering like embers across the floor. The spell's binding was gone, its essence now rooted inside her. Beauty screamed as her reflection in the shards twisted fully into something no longer human. Eyes black and luminous, veins alive with shadow, a mouth curved with hunger she could no longer deny. The man, crawling away, watched in disbelief. "It's not the curse that makes the monster," he whispered hoarsely. "It's the hunger." His words burned truth into her, and she realized he was right. For the first time, Beauty's gaze shifted from him to the world beyond the shattered windows. The hunger was not just for him, it was for everything. Every soul, every life, every heartbeat. She could feel the kingdom calling to her, its people unaware of the storm rising inside their walls. Her lips parted, a cruel smile flickering against her will. In that smile was the truth. She was no longer the girl who wanted to save the beast. She had become the hunger itself. And with each breath, the question grew louder. How long until she fed? Beauty stood before the broken windows, the cold wind clawing at her hair, her gown torn and bloodied by her struggle. The man who had once been the beast crawled to his knees, staring at her as if seeing both the woman he loved and the creature she had become. His lips quivered with a final plea, "Fight it, please." For a flicker of a moment, she almost believed she could, but the hunger roared louder than his voice, filling every corner of her soul. The castle no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a throne waiting to be claimed. And in that realization, she smiled with a calm that was more terrifying than rage. She turned away from him, her steps echoing across the fractured chamber. Every shard of glass reflected her twisted form, half woman, half shadow, entirely predator. Each step carried her closer to the kingdom below, where thousands of innocent hearts beat, oblivious to her gaze. The man reached for her, but his strength failed. He was too human now, too frail to stop her. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "I freed myself, but cursed the world." His words were swallowed by the silence that followed her departure, leaving him broken and alone among the ruins. Beyond the castle walls, torches flickered in distant villages, their lights like stars against the darkness. Beauty's eyes glowed as she gazed upon them, her breath steady, her hunger sharpening with every heartbeat she sensed. The night bent around her, shadows stretching in unnatural shapes, as if bowing to their new mistress. She whispered to the wind, "If this is who I must be, then let the world remember my name." Her voice was no longer hers. It was layered, ancient, echoing with countless others who had borne the curse before her. And in that vow, the hunger smiled. The first cries of terror erupted as wolves in forest fell silent, their instinct warning them of the predator newly born. Windows slammed shut, mothers clutched their children, and priests whispered prayers that turned to ash on their tongues. Beauty moved unseen, her shadow sliding across fields and villages, feeding on fear before ever tasting flesh. She no longer questioned what she had become. She no longer mourned the life she had left behind. The curse had not chained her, it had crowned her, and the kingdom would soon kneel, not before a beast, but before beauty, the hunger made flesh. Back in the ruins of the castle, the man pressed his forehead against the cold floor, guilt crushing his heart. He had longed for freedom, but it had cost more than his soul could bear. The rose was gone, the curse broken, yet its hunger now stalked the world. His voice cracked as he whispered her name, not in love, but in fear. And as the storm faded, the silence that followed carried a single truth. The fairy tale had not ended with love's triumph. It had ended with hunger's reign.